Welcome to Divine Feminine Voices, where we explore and define feminine consciousness. I love prophecies and visions that inspire hope. Today, my guest, Dr. Anita Sanchez, is going to share with us one of the great prophecies of our times, the Eagle Hoop prophecy. So stay tuned. Anita Sanchez, Ph.D., of Nahua, Aztec, and Mexican-American descent, is a transformational leadership consultant, speaker, coach, and author of the international award-winning book, The Four Sacred Gifts, Indigenous Wisdom for Modern Times. She bridges Indigenous teachings with the latest science to inspire and equip women and men to enjoy meaningful, empowered lives and careers. She is a member of the Transformational Leadership Council and board member of Pioneers, Evolutionary Business Council, and the Pachamama Alliance. Plus, Anita leads an annual journey into the sacred headwaters of the Amazon. Anita is passionate about inspiring people to discover and trust their gifts so that they can become a life-giving connection to people and to the planet. And Dr. Anita Sanchez, I am so excited that you're here with us today, and I'm very excited about what you're bringing to our consciousness.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here too. It's always an honor and a lifting of me as well when I know I'm speaking to groups of women that are wanting to really be part of, a thriving world, not only for now, but for the future. So thank you for having me.
Oh, what a delight. So I'm excited to hear about the Eagle Hoop prophecy. I have to say this is new to me. So I'm fresh ears. I'm excited to hear. Tell us about this beautiful prophecy and why it's important right now.
Yeah, so this prophecy came about. It's a young one, so I'm not surprised that some of our prophecies are, hundreds, if not thousands of years old. And a prophecy does not predict the future, but what it does is it tells us it's a message from Spirit, it's herself, about what may or may not occur if you attend to the original knowledge, the original instructions of who we are and how to be. So the Eagle Hoop prophecy is a prophecy that came about in 1994. And a Mohican elder in southern Colorado was asleep. And he had this vision. And in his sleep, there was a beam of light that came down and just touched him on the forehead. And then in that light form, there was a sprout, and then all of a sudden it became a tree. And the tree went through its different stages of spring, summer, fall, and winter. And as you can imagine, then the leaves dropped, but then the branches dropped as well. And what was left was one twig, and it turned itself horizontally into one hoop, representative of the earth, the universe, one hoop of life. And then what happened was the light came again, but this time the light was connecting the heavens and the earth, and droplets from this light would come, and as it about to touch the hoop, it would transform into an eagle feather. And they just kept dropping till there was 100 eagle feathers on this hoop. And he was sensing other things being said, but that was the main vision. So like most Indigenous people, when we have a vision, we talk to our community. We go to elders, and he did. And the elders said, well, the 12 elders said, well, you must do this from the Turtle Clan. And he said, well, that's another story. How do you get 101 eagle feathers? Actually, is what it was. And then, but he put the call out all over the world. And 27 elders from different traditions came to Turtle Mountain, Chippewa. And they sang their songs and did their dances and chants and meditations and all in their different languages. And they built this hoop. And they took 4 ribbons of the different colors of our earth suits, red, yellow, black, and white. And then they hung the eagle feathers from it. And at the end, the fire was always burning. At the end, they put 4 gifts in there for all humankind to help us remember, because we were entering a deep winter time. Human beings had forgotten how to be in right relationship with themselves, with other human beings, two-leggeds, and with all our relatives, including Mother Earth. And so the promise is, use these 4 gifts And you will remember how to do this, how to be in healthy relationship with yourself and others. And then from that, of course, we can create harmony, which was meant to be for all of the beings in this Hupo life to thrive. So the 4 gifts they put in there at the end of this weekend was the first gift, the power to forgive the unforgivable. The power to forgive the unforgivable. We all are already imagining what might be in our lives that we think is unforgivable, or surprised that we were able to forgive it. But nonetheless, put the power, the gift to forgive the unforgivable, into the ceremonial part of your heart. And take a breath. And the second gift they put into the hoop is the gift of the power of healing. And we all know healing is a wonderful gift we can use every day. So put that gift of the power of healing into the ceremonial part of your heart. And take another deep cleansing breath. The third gift that they put in there is the gift of the power of unity. And this is where women, we should be smiling ear to ear because we are so critical to a thriving world. So put that gift of the power of unity into the ceremonial part of your heart. And take a breath. And then the fourth gift that they put in the hoop was the gift of the power of hope. The kind of hope that's so powerful that it draws you into that action. So put the gift of the power of hope into the ceremonial part of your heart. Use these 4 gifts, and we will be able to create harmony and balance again. And I think what you're already, as you receive these, you're understanding that we already have these gifts. And it's not that we're flawed or we're bad. We've forgotten. So now we get to remember. And women have a major role in that.
Beautiful. What a powerful, powerful vision and prophecy, and what beautiful gifts. Oh my gosh, my heart felt every single one of them and their brilliance.
Yes, they are. They really feed us, is what I can sense from your expressions too. And that's what they did to me when I heard them. I was volunteering with some Indigenous youth, teaching them as they were going to go into corporate world. When I teach in the corporations, I was teaching them, but how do you keep your culture? How do you keep your values when you may be at times in places and with people whose values and ways are antithetical to yours? And that's when I received it. It was such a beautiful gift, Misa, because I was starting back in the 90s. At that point, I already had 20 some years of working to bring women and people of color, move them up in organizations. And it was getting frustrating. It's like, this is way too slow, way too slow. And then I got these gifts and it just refueled me. So what my hope is for all of for you and everyone is you're already on the path. It'll strengthen what you're already doing. Or if you're unsure, just practice them. Because I've used them in my life. I've used them with leaders, training leaders in all parts of the world and their teams. And it's made traumatic change in not only the ROI, the return on investment, moving the financial, but what it's done for people's lives and their families and their communities is so powerful.
What have you seen when people begin to embrace those gifts and really kind of step into that hoop, right? That beautiful vision. What do you see as transformation?
Yes, well, big things. Sometimes, especially people who are in business and that, or entrepreneurs, and I weave Indigenous wisdom and these gifts into everything I do. So in one high-tech company, I wove these into using positive psychology. And here was an organization, part of the business, that was product was becoming a commodity. And they moved from 25 billion to 29 billion in a flat market. So there's the quantitative stuff.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. It's a
Yeah.
powerful story. So then, but for me, that was powerful. It was really important. However, when we looked at all the thousands of people that were part of this whole thing around the world, of this igniting one's leadership using appreciative inquiry and these gifts, is that we saw their relationships with each other, the barriers that they had inside themselves, not even talking about the external barriers, to actually go for it. Things that would take a year, $1 million sales, and that would take a year to year and a half, were starting to happen in 6 months. But they weren't doing them alone. So that's one of the key things. I'm answering your question. I wanted to do the quantitative because I know many times people want that. But what began happening to people is they began to let drop the illusion of separateness and realizing how much they have not only within themselves if they connect up their head and heart and spirit, but how much around them in nature and in other human beings that they were always drawing on, but were not conscious of it. So when they moved that mindset from individual separate of total imbalance to where I'm part of this abundant hoop of life, whether it's inside the organization or larger or society, family, whatever, then that's when you begin to see the movement. So that's one of the big things that I saw happening. It's not only the quantitative, but the illusion of separateness. When you let go of that and understand that it's actually a reverse, not conspiracy. I'm losing track of the word I want to use, but everything is working in our favor if we open up to it and say yes. And I know that means work, but it is so doable.
Well, you spoke to a beautiful way to approach some of that work. For me, it struck that forgiving the unforgivable, right? That first one is a big step for a lot of us. And you approached it with such grace that we have forgotten.
Yes. Yes. That's really what it is. And I'm glad you started with forgiveness because most people, first of all, whatever of those gifts, when you put those into the ceremonial part of your heart, they all are to be used. They all are part of you. But whatever your heart tells you to start with that. And so many times people want to start with unity or hope, and that's beautiful. Start wherever you want. But what they find out is you can only go so far. You need to do your forgiveness. And so let me just say, if I could, Misa, what forgiveness is not, because that's part of what stopped me from not using it even earlier than I could have as a teen. Because forgiveness doesn't mean you're weak. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you're disloyal to, because some hurts and mistreatments are to whole groups of people, genocide, treatment of women, all sorts of things. It doesn't mean you're disloyal. It doesn't mean you forgot. You know, my early life was 9 years of childhood sexual abuse. And then at 13, the murder of my father, which was race related. He was mistaken for a black man and his life was taken. So that was a whole nother. So what I'm talking about is this gift does not mean that you forget. I'm never going to forget those things, but they don't have the energy pull from me. And that's what we're talking about, forgiveness. Forgiveness means I love myself enough that I'm willing to let go, to free myself from the imprisonment of what did or did not happen, large or small. Let that go so that I can use my energy for now and going forward. And that energy in part could be used for seeking justice. So forgiveness doesn't mean you don't seek justice. It just means you're doing it out of an energy source that is so much a positive kind of thing than stuck in the past. So it's a gift. It is a huge gift, the power to forgive the unforgivable. And if I could add on, because you're helping when I'm looking at your beautiful face, Misa, it's reminding me of one of the elders. So I am very clear that people would use forgiveness a lot more if they really experienced it and understood, because then you would want to, because it is a pathway to your freedom. You will understand freedom in a way unlike any other when you forgive. It is also a pathway to unconditional love. And I know when I talk to people a lot, I'm saying, oh, well, maybe a parent to their child, but I don't think there is any unconditional. Oh my goodness, the world is full of unconditional love. And forgiveness allows you to know that. But before COVID happened, my last Sundance with an elder, a Lakota, Oglala Lakota elder, Basil Braveheart, he was doing the Sundance for us and leading it. And he came over and part of it was on forgiveness. And I met him and he said, yes, I've heard of you. You're the forgiveness lady. And I said, and you're the forgiveness man. I know. And we just smiled. He said, you're correct, but I want you to add something in that next book that you write for women, because that's the next book will be these gifts, but it's specifically for women. And he said, it is a path to freedom. Forgiveness is the path to unconditional love. But Anita, forgiveness is the passcode to your own divinity. And when he said that, my skin just sort of tingled, and I'm like, oh, yes, yes, it is. And that, when I say that, it doesn't mean easy. It wasn't easy to forgive my abuser of all the abuse of 9 years. It wasn't easy to forgive the man who murdered my father and the wife and son who said these horrific things a week after he died. They came to our house and said just horrible things about Black people. However, what I found is that my ability to be present and to live out my purpose opened up. It exponentially doesn't even make sense. It's way beyond that I was able to do that because I actually have the knowing at a cellular level that all of this is possible, that we can connect hearts, really embracing our similarities and differences all over the world.
And what I'm drawn to as you're speaking, Anita, is that oneness that we talk about, that unity, is in compassion for what we thought we could never have compassion for. To understand any other at the same depth from which we would hope someone would understand our weaknesses, our flaws, our wounds, that is a gift that goes beyond anything we're going to be able to describe in words.
You exactly have it. And again, it doesn't mean that you don't change the systems and structures that allow that to happen to begin with. But it already, even without changing those, it starts changing that in your life. That young boy who came to my house the week after, where his mother just said all these horrible things about Black people, I didn't know as a 13-year-old that got lodged into me. And so as I began doing my diversity, equity, inclusion work in my 20s, and I started rooms of white people talking about what their parents taught them, and many of them would say they taught them that they were better than people of color. They would say either they literally said that, or by the absence of us in their lives, they knew they were better than us. But they were doing something different. They were befriending people. They were changing policies and programs, maybe not fast enough, and we're still in it, but it was happening. But what it did for the adult Anita, that the 13-year-old hurt Anita in her pain couldn't grasp, was that I had this realization, and that this young white boy, who was probably around my age of 13, that summer in 1967, when my father was murdered, my 5 brothers and sisters and I, and my mom, I lost my father, she lost her husband. But that white boy, he lost his father too. And he grew up knowing his father was a murderer. And when that hit me, by hearing the voices of these other folks, it became like, oh my gosh, I was doing exactly, not at that extreme, but I was still in that continuum of what his father did to my father, which took away his humanity so that he could murder him, that he was something less. I was taking away that white boy's humanity too. I literally was taking away his face. And what I now know is that realizing my compassion for him is that if I were to run into this man, I would know who he was. And I just wish the best for him. And all of this is possible. All of this is possible for us to be able to move forward. And I think there's a specific role for women in doing this. I know there is.
Talk to us about that. What is our role as women? Why is it so significant right now?
It's very significant. First of all, it's not about a bad or good, men versus women. It's not that. In an Indigenous perspective, masculine and feminine, and two-spirit, all these things are all connected. And within us, we have the yin and yang. We have the masculine, the feminine. But what we as women or women identified, female identified, what we have though is an understanding innate in another way at the biological right to the spiritual. We're all part of Mother Earth. And men are too. But we're part of Mother, that's our first mother. And we can understand that whether we biologically create children to come into the world, we nonetheless, generally the women who don't create the children, they're mothers to so many more because they're there for all of these children everywhere, you know? So, but anyway, that role that we have to bring back the respect and dignity to her, and how it can begin is respecting ourselves as women and not taking in the toxic stuff that's in the mainstream about women. And that's been in the shifting for some time, but it's still, there's toxic stuff that makes us go, oh no, everything else is more important. Oh no, I'm not as worthy. And I don't mean about not being humble. We need to be humble. But in ceremony, all over the world, whether I'm in Hawaii, and what's popping in for me right now is Kyrgyzstan on the foothills of the Himalayas. This was May of 2019, before, again, year before COVID, so I was able to be for a week in ceremony with women from different traditions, including from Kyrgyzstan. And what kept coming through from Spirit were a couple of things. First of all, you must be present. The invitation, the love that's here for us to be fully to step into who we are, what we are, and our contributions is so great. The second thing that got said, and I said, because I heard it, some saw it, but basically it came through, was no longer compete. Let that go. That jealousy and pulling down other women in order to try and make yourself, that's part of the old patriarchy. That was not what was always here. Most Indigenous people come from matrilineal societies, not matriarchal. Matrilineal means that women and men both had power. And when you saw those pictures of longhouses where the men were down here smoking the pipe and making decisions, the women are over here making rugs and things, people misconstrued that, the settlers. The women had already made the decisions. They sat in there to make sure the men followed what they said. Women often chose who was the chief, not the men. Everyone had power and responsibility. And so in these ceremonies, what's coming through clearly is that shed that competition with women, the pulling down to make yourself, that is not it. That's continuing in that thread. But the rise of the feminine, the rise of the power of who we are at every level, spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical, will require us to do that. And so that we can bring our gifts fully, the earth, right, in every sector, whether it's economic, global warming, social unrest, all the divisions, we are meant to be here. So I'm glad you asked, and I will just say in ceremonies everywhere, it's about the feminine. It is about women. And so I honor you in this work that you're doing and bringing the voices, because this is, no matter what your circumstances are, you could be in abundance of the material wealth, or you could have nothing. Doesn't matter. We're far more than that. And I can speak to that too, because I'm an example of that. As someone coming from real poverty, 8 people in 2 rooms, and first one to get a college education in my family of 120 first cousins, and on and on and on. And what that does, though, once a woman steps forward, then more step forward, and always with humility, because I did none of this on my own. My ancestors were helping me. My mother, with a 7th grade education, inspired me. She never was not without a book when she could have a book to read. And I was just like, there's so many things in our lives, and the trees that are providing all of us oxygen right now, taking our carbon and pulling that through. It's not the air conditioner. It's there's this other relationship that's happening.
Yeah.
I kind of went off because if you can tell, I'm so excited for us as women. And I know we are struggling with so much. There's all the depression, all the different things that are happening in our communities and perhaps inside ourselves. But it is ours. We have, for feeling that we do have the ability and can call on others for the gift of healing. We can call on to be able to move forward.
I'm so glad you made that distinction, that ability to rise up your gifts and who you are and what you are here to share, that the humility is recognizing you're not doing it alone.
Yes.
And that's what keeps us in balance. And what was coming to mind, Anita, was the circles that I've been in, the groups of women where there's this subconscious text going on that says, but we all have to be at the same place at the same time. So if a woman suddenly rises up and she becomes a best-selling author, right? Or she does something really powerful, she has a position of power, that somehow that's wrong, right? There's this like trying to pull her down, which is the antithesis of what we need. You really spoke to us all rising up.
It is. It is because it absolutely is. And it gives you such joy when you do that. One of the things that, again, I don't seek awards, but awards start coming to me. And so one of the awards that came to me recently was the World Women's Foundation. And they got a hold of me last fall and said, we identified 60 women. And then they started with Jane Goodall. And I'm like, so there's the doubt. And you're calling me? And they said, well, we've identified 60 women. And our goal in the next year is to inspire 1 million girls all over the world to dream their dreams, to keep dreaming and to step into leadership, even at their age and older. And you 60 are who we've selected. And they did a little film, and their goal was to do that. And in less than 2 months, they had already reached 1 million. And I started getting notes from girls in Africa and different places saying, that's my story. And look what you're doing all over the world. And look at, I'm going to too, because I dream. I have dreams. And that's like, yes, give me. so I'm, the fact they're the leaders and the ones that are, it's like, I just am joyful about it. And that energy comes back to you. And maybe we don't see it in the way of things. But what you also find out as a human being, that we only need so many things. But what we do really hunger for is wisdom, is relationships that are healthy. And I know women understand that. So because we seek that wherever we are, when we're by ourselves, going inward, and as well as when we're in our businesses and teams and in our communities and our families. And that's the possibility when you use these 4 gifts. You will just keep going, keep doing it. So it makes me excited every time. So I gave that example because I want people to know that this isn't just, sometimes people think, well, that's really nice. And especially in business, like, well, that's really nice, forgiveness. Oh my gosh, do you know how much needs to be forgiven inside of businesses? There is so much that when people do forgive, that it opens up their ability to really collaborate. It's just a word before. Then they able to, and then they see how much they've been stuck because their inability to trust only so far. And I'm not saying to anyone, you still be discerning. I know there's negative politics and things that go on, so you discern. However, if that's your only path, then you're not going to get to the joy, to the wisdom, the levels and expansiveness of it. And so I hope for people that they just keep doing every day. That's what I keep doing, and I find there's more and more, and I find stuff of my own that I'm running into. It's like, thank you, I got to run into another piece of myself. And people go, you are the person who gets so happy when you see some of your dark stuff. I said, yeah, because you have to heal. The first thing that has to happen, you have to be able to see it, to hear it. So listening becomes very important. Then you get supportive relationships. Those might be in nature, might be other human beings, might be your ancestors that are speaking to you inside of you and stuff. But then the other thing is you have unconditional love starts happening. And then the 4th thing is you got to get into action. So what I just named for you is 4 things as I've studied indigenous healing traditions in different parts of the world, and not a lot, but a number. And I wanted to see what were some of the common themes, and those 4 were present. Listening for healing, to be aware of it. Supportive relationships. Those could be other 2-leggeds. It could be nature, wherever. 3rd, unconditional love. When we are meant to unconditionally love ourselves and others. And when we start feeling that schism, that's not something to get afraid about. Instead of okay, let me find where that is, because then I mend that so they can be more expansive. And then the fourth thing is we got to get in action. It's like anything. Do you remember when GPS first came in? See, it feels so long ago, but I remember sitting in my car and I was like, okay, and my partners, I said, well, it's not talking. They said, you have to move. So that's what we as women, with that courage to move. And it may be a step that was an error. Great. Oh, okay, let me try another one and another and another. And then you get there. But rarely, sometimes it's a direct path, but oftentimes it's very weaving. And so I've learned to, with these gifts too, is to enjoy that journey, even the hard parts, because I know there's always a gift there.
Yeah.
And even in the depths of the tough.
There's freedom on the other side of that.
Yes,
The
there
minute
you
you
go.
see it, you saw the doorway, right? Let me in.
Man, I'm going for it. And I have no problem asking for help at all. That was difficult early on. I really trusted nature much more. And it made sense from childhood abuse. But luckily with the elders that were teaching me too at the same time about nature, and that I was able to turn to nature. And then finally by teen, I started like opening up, and, as other people saw me like, you're a leader, we're going to elect you to be student body president of this 30,000 person university. And I'm looking, I'm like, if you only knew. To make some other, and as adult, that doesn't go away. That happens, but it doesn't take hold anymore. It's like, oh, I know you. Okay, you stay over there, and now I'm going to do this, and you just keep going.
Hello, doubt. There you
Yeah,
are.
there you are. Yeah.
I know, you
Yeah.
old friend. Yeah, and it keeps stepping forward because, again, if we go back to the hoop that you were talking about, that's the hope, right? If we're not stepping forward into our callings, we're not inspiring hope. There can't be unity if we're not stepping forward, if we're not facing those doubts. So how beautiful this, I'm seeing this tapestry that you're weaving.
Yes. Yes.
That is so
You
from your,
absolutely got it because you live it too. I just know that. We haven't talked about that, but I know if I were to reverse to interview you, you've been using all these gifts.
yep,
And
that's
so that's the key was we want, that's what I'm a messenger of. I realize that that's a part of this role of having people, inspiring them to be a life-giving force to themselves, to others, all our relatives. And so when you see they are intimately interconnected, so start wherever, and then just continue because it's every day is a new day, and I get to use them all again and again.
Well, you've mentioned that relationship with Mother Earth several times, and something I've observed, and I'm curious if you've seen this with the people you've worked with, is sometimes we've been so wounded, even the concept of love or unconditional love seems like way out there. Are you kidding me? Give me a break. But Mother is a place where if we can feel it no other place, we will feel it with original Mother. That's been my experience. Have you
Is.
observed
It
that?
is because Mother Earth, she's taking care of us now. And as much as we could point to all sorts of facts to the contrary of our lives being difficult, ultimately we're alive in here because Mother Earth, we're made of all the elements of the earth. We're water, we're stardust, all these things that are providing for us on a daily basis. We would be gone if we didn't have that. So once we realize that connection and that every moment I am receiving and I am giving, then it makes it like, that's how it works. Everything's just given, receive, given, receive, and given, receive. But when we're hurt and we haven't done the healing of forgiveness, then we doubt that cycle really works. We've forgotten about reciprocity. We've forgotten about there's more than enough, sufficiency, And so when we get into the, not enough, and all those kinds of things, and it changes. So yes, it's just a powerful thing to realize if people went away with I want to tell you, she just popped up. So recently I was talking to a elder, a Sami elder from the Kalahari, Lise Kruper, who does amazing work in the Kalahari in South Africa. And through interpreters, we're talking. And I asked her at the end, so what is your dream, or your hope, if there's something to share? Because it's very difficult what's going on there with the virus and things in South Africa. And she said, in my dream, people, human beings realize we do nothing alone. Nothing. Not breath, not eating, not sleeping, not all the awakening, not the creation, the innovation, nothing alone. And here's this wise woman who is there in the Kalahari that does the traditional healing, using trance and energy. And her clarity of that dream, I could feel it. Yes, yes, to that dream, to helping pull that out.
Oh,
Expand that. Don't you want to expand that? Like Lise Cooper. Now you know of Lise Cooper. She's just, and that's the thing with all of us as women, when we can just go like, when I say Lise Cooper, I'm sitting up in my chair like, oh my gosh, instead of, I'm not going to be seen as, no, oh my gosh, if we could ignite each other's good dreams all over, oh my gosh. And that's what we as the feminine energy have, the capacity to do, just with the choice. Just through the choice, we can do it consciously. But even unconsciously, we are doing some of that, but we need it in always, conscious and unconscious, it happening.
it's true. There's a prayer at the end of one of the ceremonies I'm privileged to offer, and the blessing is, may you become a woman of your choosing.
Yes.
You just spoke to so beautifully that you.
I love that. I love that. It's
There's
beautiful.
something coming to mind I'd really love for you to speak to. And this came up from a student recently. So this is some live teaching here.
Yeah, good.
She was struggling with, and I've seen many women struggle with this again, that sense of that being sparked and feeling willing to rise up to your potential, that she felt guilt having come from a privileged class of people, guilt for having and for things being easier when so many people suffered. And so there's this tendency to push ourselves down as opposed to raise ourselves up. And that energy that can hold us back.
Yes. The unworthiness energy she's talking about, that I hope she does, and I'm sure she will with your support and with all her guides and ancestors helping her to let go of that, because privilege in the sense that we have all we need is not a bad thing. I'm talking about the material, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical, all of that. If we have more than we need, I think of a teacup and a saucer. And I learned this, that I used to get depleted because I was always giving the cup to serve, and then I'd find I'd be just depleted. And then I realized, someone taught me, an elder, let the tea pour over. You've got more than enough, and offer the saucer for people to drink. And this woman, the student, is letting herself be known because she has an overflowing cup. So she may need a big saucer. And then she shares that privilege, that beautiful abundance with others. No reason for guilt. Your place may be to experience that, and also then to have such an overfull saucer that you can just give a lot. It's to share it, not to feel guilty and then make yourself smaller. And in doing that, you will find that you are also inspiring others who also may not feel like they have enough, that they then do. And can you just imagine us all going around with offering saucers to each other, filled of nutrition and water, all these things that give life, of love. I'm sending you light. Here's a saucer for a little light. that would be wonderful. And I have seen that. I've seen that. I've seen it in businesses. I won't say it throughout a whole large global corporation, but I've seen pockets where women have done that. Not only just with each other, but they know that there's someone's very difficult, and they intentionally will do that with that person. And it may take a while, but eventually you see this person, they're like, what happened to that person? Love is powerful. So use your privilege, share it, share that abundance.
Oh, I love that metaphor. I love that metaphor. And when I think about what you just spoke to, prior to that, that concept of the vision, right? When you have a vision and your cup is overflowing and you're offering that saucer, you're holding another woman in her vision too,
Yes.
right? What she can be. And she needs you to be all that you can be.
Yes.
You need to be all, each of us, to be that beautiful, beautiful overflowing cup. Yeah. Anita, as we bring this to a close, what is your vision? What would you say your vision is right now for humanity, for women, however you want to speak to that?
Yes, I can feel it. I was about to say, I'm a stand for really always existed, but we forgot. And that we are all connected, that we are one heart, even. And that it may seem, are you crazy with the divisions that's around? But I'm also at the same time seeing the connection. So my dream, over and over since I've been a 3-year-old, is the earth. And my artistic abilities haven't grown. So there's still all these stick people, different colors and sizes, and we all have our hands on each other's hearts. And so that's my dream. And sometimes it gets manifested in organizations, in communities, and taking people to the Amazon rainforest, to the sacred headwaters every year, in the work that I do in various places, but in ceremony. But that's my dream and vision, that we realize that our hearts are connected all over the world.
Oh, I love that. I'm sure I'm one of those stick people in there because my heart leapt. Like, yes.
Yeah, there are millions of us. I couldn't draw them all when I was in kindergarten, but I drew a lot of there are millions of them, so I'm eating them all the time. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, and the best comes from our innocent selves,
Yeah,
doesn't
it
it?
does.
Ooh, that's that divine wisdom coming through. Well, you have a gift for the women and I believe some men who are watching this today.
Yes.
Would you
Yes,
like to?
it's for everyone. I'm offering you a free ebook, and you'll have the link for that, but it's at forsacredgifts.com, and it's a free ebook and a song called In Right Relations. You get both of them there. And it's based on the messages in my book, The Four Sacred Gifts, Indigenous Wisdom for Modern Time. So you can go there and you can download it for free.
Oh, awesome. What a beautiful gift. And what a beautiful woman. I'm getting teary. Anita, your soul, your heart are so, so gorgeous. Thank you for your sacred work and for being a part of our journey here today at this channel. So
Delighted.
be sure to pick up Dr. Anita's lovely gift for you. There is a link for it below this video. You can also pick up my free holding meditation for divine feminine healing and awakening, and that link is also below. And of course, if you love what you've heard today, subscribe to my YouTube channel for even more.